The disposable black phone vibrated 3 times before Sophia managed to grab it with her trembling hands. She was crouched in an alley behind the apartment building, her thin body curled up against the damp November cold of Madrid. The number she had memorized months ago, the one she had sworn never to use, flashed red on the screen. At 28, Sofia Garcia's face bore the marks of poverty, not of ugliness, but of chronic tension, of eyes that had aged too soon, of shoulders always slightly hunched as if carrying the weight of the world. What she carried was even heavier, the responsibility of caring for her 5-year-old son, Miguel, alone, in a 1-bedroom apartment in one of Madrid's most dangerous neighborhoods. She pressed the button. "Security Central," said a woman's voice, professional and distant. I need to speak with Agent Castellanos," Sofia whispered, her voice so low it was almost lost beneath the noise of the street. "It's an emergency. My name is Sofia Garcia. He'll know who I am." There was a pause. Sofia could hear her own heart pounding wildly against her ribs. "One moment," said the woman. Clicks. Silence. Waiting. Sofia whispered a prayer under her breath, the same one her grandmother had taught her, the one she had stopped saying years ago, when she stopped believing anyone in heaven might be listening. "Sofia?" The voice was different now, deep, familiar in a way that made her stomach twist. What happened? It was him, Agent Victor Castellanos, the man who had entered her life like a tornado 3 years earlier, destroying everything she had carefully built out of resignation and survival, and then vanished, leaving scars that never healed. "Miguel fell," Sofia said, her voice breaking, "in the street, right in front of the building. I can't see him move properly. I think he broke something. I don't have money for a hospital, and if I call the police..." She didn't have to finish. Victor would know. He knew everything about her. He knew about her father's criminal record, about how she'd grown up in the roughest neighborhoods of Barcelona, about the things she'd done, things she could never forgive herself for, just to earn enough money to get out. He knew that calling the police would mean questions, investigations, and the risk that someone would discover she was using a fake identity to work as a cleaner in a law office. "I'm 15 minutes away," Victor said, and she heard the sound of keys being grabbed. "Stay where you are. I'll call a doctor I trust. Sofia, everything's going to be okay." The line went dead. Sofia let the phone drop into her lap, tears burning her eyes. Everything's going to be okay. How could he promise that? Nothing in her life had ever been okay. Nothing ever would be. A black Mercedes pulled into the alley 12 minutes later. Victor Castellanos stepped out of the car with the fluid grace of a man used to being in control. At 36, he looked exactly as Sofia remembered, tall, broad-shouldered, beneath a flawless gray suit, black hair streaked with silver, and an angular face that might have been carved from stone, except for the eyes. Those gray eyes could be as hard as steel or as soft as fading ash. In that moment, as he looked at Sofia crouched beside Miguel, his eyes were so gentle that she could barely stand it. "Let me see," Victor said, kneeling carefully next to Miguel. The boy, frightened and crying, pressed himself against his mother. "Mama," Miguel whimpered. "It hurts. My foot really hurts." Victor, who, according to Sofia, had spent half his life in field operations and had been involved in things he never fully explained, spoke to the boy with a tenderness that disarmed her completely. "Hey, champ, my name's Victor. I'm a friend of your mom's. Can I take a look at your foot? I promise I'll be really gentle." Miguel, still trembling, let Victor examine his swollen ankle. Victor moved the boy's foot carefully, testing for mobility, his face professional and focused. "It's swollen, but it doesn't look broken," Victor said finally. "Probably a sprain. He'll need an X-ray to be sure, but I doubt it's a fracture. With ice and rest, he should be fine in a week or 2. A woman stepped out of the car. The doctor, Sofia assumed. She was a middle-aged black woman with a warm, competent expression. Carrying a medical bag, she quickly began a more thorough examination, every movement brisk and professional. Meanwhile, Victor offered his hand to help Sofia up. "How long?" she asked as she took his hand, feeling the familiar warmth, the restrained power in his fingers. "How long since we last saw each other?" Victor replied, helping her to her feet. 2 years, 8 months, and 17 days. But who's counting? Sofia pulled back, withdrawing her hand. "You left. I had to go," Victor said, his eyes meeting hers. "For your safety." There are things in my life, Sophia, things you don't understand, that would make it dangerous for you to be near me. And now? Now your son is hurt, and you're alone in an alley in the most dangerous part of Madrid, living under a false name, working a job you were never supposed to get. Now, things have changed. Sophia felt anger boiling in her chest. You can't just disappear from someone's life and then show up again when it suits you. I was pregnant when you left. Victor's face went pale, literally pale, as if someone had drained all the color from his cheeks. You were pregnant? He asked, his voice dropping dangerously low. Yes, I was. And I gave birth to our son alone in a public hospital because you had vanished, and I didn't have the money to— Sophia stopped abruptly, realizing what she had just said. Miguel, her son, their son. Victor's eyes shifted to Miguel, who was now sitting in the back seat of the Mercedes while the doctor wrapped his ankle in ice bandages. That's— Miguel is your son, Sophia confirmed, her chin trembling. He has your dark hair, your eyes, and that damned habit of wanting to fix everything when someone's in pain. You can't be here, Victor. You can't be part of this. It's dangerous. For you or for me? Victor asked, his eyes still fixed on Miguel. For both of us. For all of us. 20 hours later, Sophia woke up in a private hospital room. It wasn't the usual public emergency ward with its crowded halls and shouting patients. This place was elegant, quiet, with a window overlooking the city of Madrid glittering under the night sky. Miguel slept in the bed beside her, his foot wrapped in a professional bandage, a heart monitor blinking softly. Victor's doctor had confirmed it, a severe sprain, but no fracture. With full rest, he'd be fine in 2 weeks. The door opened silently. Victor entered, carrying 2 coffees from a cafe Sophia recognized. He was out of his suit now, wearing wool pants and a turtleneck that revealed a burn mark on his neck, one she hadn't seen before, probably earned in the years they'd spent apart. How are you feeling? Victor asked, offering her one of the coffees. Scared, Sophia said honestly, taking the warm cup. Confused. Angry. I can work with angry, Victor said, sitting down beside the bed. Anger I can understand, but let me explain a few things. I don't need explanations. I was on assignment when I found out you were pregnant, Victor interrupted. I was in Belarus, deep cover in a terrorist cell. I had to maintain 0 contact, no phone, no email, nothing that could trace back to you. If they'd found out I had a weakness, someone I loved— He paused, taking a slow breath. They would have come for you. They would have come for our child. Sophia noticed he'd said our child, not Miguel, not the boy, but our child, as if he were claiming him. I kept watching over you, Victor went on, quietly. There were agents keeping an eye on your building. I knew when Miguel was born. I knew his first steps, his first word. I knew every little moment of his life. That's terrifying, Sophia whispered. Yes, it probably is, Victor agreed. But it's also the truth. 6 months ago, the threat was neutralized. My operation was declared complete. The man I was tracking was captured. The people who wanted to use him against me are either dead or in prison. And now? Now I'm requesting a transfer back to Madrid. A desk job. No field work. No missions. I'm done with that life, Sophia. I'm walking away from it because I realized there's no point in having a safe life if I don't have you and Miguel in it. Tears welled up again in Sophia's eyes. You can't just come back. It doesn't work like that. You don't even know that boy. He's going to hate you at first. Then let me get to know him, Victor said, his hands moving forward slightly, though he stopped before reaching her. Let me be part of this life the right way. Let me be his father, Sophia. Let me be yours. Before Sophia could respond, the door opened again. A woman entered, as tall as Victor, carrying herself with military precision even without a uniform. Her blue eyes were sharp, her blonde hair tied back in a strict bun. Castellanos, the woman said, her tone commanding. We need to talk. Victor's expression changed instantly. The vulnerability he had shown vanished, replaced by the professional mask of an agent back on duty. Colonel Marquez, he said, standing. How did you find out you were here? It's my job to know these things, and it's my job to inform you that your transfer has been denied. You're needed in the field. There's an operation in Istanbul that requires your specific expertise. Sophia's heart stopped. Colonel, Victor said, his voice sharpening, with all due respect, I've already made it clear I'm leaving active service. You can't leave while there's still a threat, Marquez replied. And there is one, Castellanos. A big one. We know you have connections here in Madrid, people you care about, people who can be used against you. The best way to protect them is to take this assignment. Help me eliminate the problem, and then you can come back to your beautiful little life. Victor's eyes flicked to Sofia. His jaw tightened. How long? He asked, his voice low. 2 months, maybe 3. No, Sofia said suddenly. No, you can't take him. You won't. Marquez turned her head toward Sofia, her expression mildly intrigued. And who are you? Sofia Garcia, Sofia answered, summoning a courage she didn't know she had. I'm the mother of his child. Sofia, no, Victor whispered, a warning. You have a son, Castellanos? Marquez asked, her eyes gleaming with cold calculation. Well, that changes things, because if you don't cooperate with this operation, that little boy in the bed over there will be left without protection. No agents watching, no one keeping an eye on him. Sofia felt horror wash over her. It wasn't an open threat, but it was a threat all the same. You're despicable, Victor said, his voice so dangerous Sofia could feel the violence simmering beneath it. I'm a realist, Marquez replied. You have 48 hours to pack. The plane leaves from El Prado at dawn on Monday. She turned and left, leaving a heavy silence behind her. That night, sitting beside a sleeping Miguel, Sofia whispered the truth to Victor. You have to go, she said, each word like glass in her mouth. If you don't, she'll do something. You know she will. I won't leave you, Victor said, though his voice carried doubt. You have to trust me, Sofia said softly, the same way I have to trust you. You go, finish this thing, and then you come back. When you do, we'll be a family. For real. No secrets, no missions, just us 3. Victor took her hand and brought it to his lips, kissing her fingers with a tenderness that made her want to cry. If anything happens, anything at all while I'm gone, you call the number I'm going to leave. Not the central line. A number only you have, okay? Anything, and every contact I have will come for you. Sofia nodded, unable to speak. 3 months later, Sofia was in her new apartment, much bigger, in a better neighborhood, paid for by Victor even while he was in Istanbul. Miguel was starting to put weight on his foot again, beginning to play and run like a 5-year-old should. Then there was a knock at the door. Victor walked in, and Sofia knew instantly that something had changed. There was a new scar on his temple, and his eyes carried that distant emptiness of someone who had seen things that shouldn't exist. But when his gaze met Sofia's, that emptiness vanished, replaced by something that made her heart stop. Love, pure, uncomplicated, all-consuming love. I'm out, Victor said. I turned in my badge yesterday. I'm never doing this again. How did you? Marquez changed her mind. Turns out the Istanbul operation went so well that I became unnecessary. And the man who was her superior, the one you were afraid of, he was found dead in a prison 3 days ago. Someone inside the cell killed him. Someone very skilled. Sofia didn't have to ask. She already knew. But she didn't ask because there was a silent agreement between them now. Some secrets would remain unspoken. Miguel ran out of the bedroom and jumped into Victor's arms, shouting, "Daddy!" And Victor, this man who had spent his whole life in the shadows of secret operations, lifted him up and spun him around, his face radiating a pure, unguarded joy Sofia had never seen in him before. That night, as Miguel slept between them in the big bed, Sofia whispered, "Promise you'll never leave us again." Victor kissed her forehead. "I promise. You're my home now, Sofia. You and Miguel. Everything else can fall apart, but as long as you're with me, I'll always have a place to return to." A year later, Sofia wore a white lace dress, not a traditional wedding gown, but something elegant and refined, while Victor waited for her in a small private garden at a house in Segovia. Miguel, in a miniature suit that matched Victor's, held the rings. It wasn't the wedding Sofia had always dreamed of. There were no hundreds of guests, no cinematic glamour. It was just them, a few of Victor's close friends whom Sofia had begun to know, and Victor's widowed mother, who held Sofia in a long embrace and whispered in her ear, "Thank you for bringing my son back." When Victor kissed her as his wife, Sofia felt as if all the pain, all the struggle, all the loneliness of the past years finally made sense. Because this was the point. It wasn't about being rich or safe in the usual way. It was about having someone who chose you, who gave up an entire world just to be part of yours. 2 years later, Sofia sat in a park in Madrid with Miguel, now 7, while an 8-month-old baby slept in the stroller beside her. Sofia was studying to become a nurse, with Victor paying for her tuition. Miguel was a bright, well-adjusted boy, despite everything he had lived through. Victor walked toward the park, coming from his new job, corporate security, no secret agents, no missions. He kissed Sofia and made faces at the baby, who woke up smiling. "Everything okay?" he asked, noticing Sofia staring thoughtfully into the distance. "Just thinking," she said, taking his hand, "about how one phone call to an emergency number changed everything. How desperate I was that day when I called you, knowing you probably wouldn't answer, knowing you had probably moved on with your life." "I never moved on," Victor said. "I was waiting. Even if I didn't realize it, I was waiting. And then you called, and suddenly all the chaos made sense." Sofia rested her head on his shoulder, watching the sunset over Madrid, watching their son run joyfully through the park, watching her husband, the man who had walked out of a world of shadows just to live in hers. "No regrets?" he asked, echoing the words that had become a ritual between them. "None," Sofia said, and she meant it, because sometimes an entire life changes with a single phone call. Sometimes the most desperate thing you can do, reaching out, believing someone will care, is exactly what the universe had planned all along. And sometimes a secret agent leaves his entire world behind just for the chance to be with the woman he loves and the son he never knew until he was ready to be a real father. That was the story of Sofia Garcia and Victor Castellanos, not heroic or cinematic, but real, and so deeply human that everything else seemed pale in comparison. Thank you all for following this story. If you enjoyed it, please leave a comment and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.